It's time for Remodel Revolution. And now, an award-winning contractor with over 40 years' experience. Here is Alex Guthrie.
Welcome to another episode of Remodel Revolution. I'm your host, Alex Guthrie, coming to you from the world headquarters of Remodel Revolution, deep in the heart of the great state of Texas. We're so glad you're with us. We do not do sports, we do not do politics, and we do not like mean people. So thanks for being here today. We're going to have a fantastic show today. We have Phil Crone, the EO, the executive officer, the big cheese at the Dallas Builders Association. We're going to talk about kind of local building trends that are surprising everybody at this point. And also we have Daryl Davis with Texas Water Boys. Daryl and I are going to talk about sprinkler systems and water drainage and things that are affecting us all. And he has an interesting project he's doing right now for a homeowner that he and I talked about a similar project in a similar part of town that I did last year. So this ought to be quite interesting. First, I wanted to give some tips on some natural and organic type remedies to control mosquitoes and bugs and some sort of just homemade remedies for some things. First of all, on bees. Now, right now, of course, bees are crazy, and I'm talking about the stinging kind, the wasp and the yellow jackets and all that. And you can go to the big box store, the hardware store, and you can buy that big giant can that sprays 30 feet or whatever it is of poison, toxic poison. You don't need that. Actually, a fantastic solution that works probably better than that is to take Dawn dish soap and mix it in a big tumbler of with water. Just some warm water, some Dawn, just mix it in there, just maybe a couple teaspoons, so you have a good sudsy, fluffy mixture, and take it up there and you chunk it on that bee's nest, and every one of those bees will drop to the ground immediately. And that is non-toxic, it's environmentally friendly, it's a whole lot better than that stuff in the can. And also that same mix in a spray bottle if you're having mosquito issues around your yard. Now, I'm not recommending this. I'm not going to tell you it won't hurt plants or something because I don't know. I'm not an arborist. But I've used this before. It's the same mixture, the Dawn and water, and you can actually spray it on certain plants and it won't hurt them, but it will kill the mosquitoes. So if you have a lot of ornamental shrubbery in your yard, they're holding moisture and mosquitoes are breeding in some of that, that can help. But also, if you have standing water or you have something that's holding, like the little tray under your potted plants that holds water, put a couple of drops of Dawn in there and that will kill those mosquito larvae and control them. I like Dawn. Now, citronella plants, citronella candles, and one thing that I've used for years for mosquito repellent is Skin So Soft. Skin So Soft, I just looked it up last night and somebody says, oh, it only lasts for 20 or 30 minutes. Well, whatever. Skin So Soft will keep those mosquitoes off of you and you smell better. Also, make sure you go through your yard and you get rid of all standing water. If you have any standing water in your yard, you need to do, if it's in something, turn it over and get it out or fill up. If it's a hole that's filling up with water when the yard gets watered, put some dirt in there and so there's no standing water. Now, let's talk about crawling insects. And this is something that you'll have a problem with from time to time during the year in extreme dry, hot weather like right now, or sometimes extreme cold weather. You'll get crawling insects coming into your house like those big old water bugs that look like the world's biggest roaches. And they kind of are. And I was having a problem with that. And I didn't want to spray a bunch of chemicals around the house. So I just got some boric acid at the hardware store. And I put it in, I sprayed a light little dusting in the back of the cabinets and around the baseboard. And I'm telling you, it's almost like a miracle. I haven't had a single problem, and I was having a pretty bad one for a while. So the boric acid works really well. I don't believe that it's toxic at all. I think it's almost the equivalent of baking soda, which is what we used to use. So try the boric acid, save some money, and don't put those toxic chemicals in your house. Now, here's an interesting way to deal with spiders on your porch ceiling. So particularly if you're in the country and you've got a open air porch you spend a lot of time in, and this time of year you'll have bees and spiders and all kinds of bugs going up there making nests or webs or whatever. Back in the early times, many years ago before even I was born, they used to believe in the South that if they painted the ceiling blue on their porch, it would help keep evil spirits out. Well, it ends up what it does is it keeps spiders and bees out. For some reason, that color blue will keep them from building nests or webs or whatever on your porch ceiling. So paint it blue. It actually really works. And if you'll go out into the country, if you have friends that live out in the country, a lot of them do that because it really works. So that's our tips for the day. That's a non-toxic way of dealing with bugs and mosquitoes. Send me any recipes you've got, any home remedies for bugs. I know there's a lot more. I wasn't trying to cover everything, but these are some things that I've done that work. So now, waiting in the wings in the executive suite of the Dallas Builders Association is my very good friend, Phil Crone. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Alex. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. I have to put my ears on. How's it going?
It's going pretty well in this weird year that we call 2020.
Yeah.
Just good to be with you today.
Yeah, it's good to be with you. Now, you are a survivor. You've had COVID. You got through it because you're a young, healthy guy. How you feeling?
That helped. Yeah, I had it. And as it turns out, my wife did too. And we're both 100% back to normal. I'm about to donate my 5th round of the convalescent plasma, which hopefully is helping some people and working out with the antibodies in there, which I still have. I had COVID right around March 20th and recovered really early April and just been back at it ever since. And
you're a runner. You take good care of yourself, and so is Heidi, your wife. And so you guys did the fact that you are just a healthy young individual, did that have a lot to do with your recovery?
Yeah, I think it did. Certainly there are people that have a lot harder time than we did, but being able to be in shape, I think, helped bounce back, and she's done a good job of whipping me into shape over the last few years.
She sure has. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's going on locally, because I don't know if it's an aberration or if it's an anomaly. I don't know the right word for it. It almost seems as though North Texas hasn't ever really slowed down. It may have slowed down a little bit, but man, did we bounce back. And now we're talking about residential new homes primarily. Our residential development has gone crazy, our commercial as well, of course. It all goes hand in hand. And what is keeping us going like this?
You know, Alex, I've always said that homes are where the jobs sleep at night. And in the first 2 months of the pandemic, we saw 2 months wipe out about 4 years of the 80 to 120,000 jobs that we would see in the DFW area on an annual basis. We got about 140,000 of those back to work in June. It's about 35% of them. And between that, rebounding a little bit, certainly more in Dallas than in other markets, people just being keenly aware that they want to upgrade their quarantine scene, maybe have a home office, just adjust to the next normal that we're seeing here, and then reluctance on the existing home side for people to put their home into inventory and have strangers walking through their house during the pandemic that's going on. All of that bodes really well for new construction. And I've had a lot of builders saying, hey, we've had a record June and we just wrapped up a record July.
Yeah, I was reading that, and I am wondering, all the relocations that are coming to this area, that must be driving a lot of this?
Certainly, we're still seeing a lot of relocations from elsewhere. I think the verdict's still out in terms of just how strong that's going to continue, and I don't see any reason though why the Dallas area and Texas will not be, what it has been over the last few years, just the magnet for job growth and relocations from elsewhere in more challenging markets.
How is this affecting pricing for just purchase? Has the median price gone up or down, or is it consistent?
Don't really have just kind of post-March or versus pre-March numbers in just yet, but just anecdotally, I've heard from a number of builders that are having at least the same or maybe a slight increase in prices. Inventory is getting a little bit squeezed just because of how much things have bounced back. And then also just the cost of building has gone up because of supply chain disruptions and material issues. Lumber in particular has been getting quite expensive quite quickly. Mm-hmm. So that's prevented builders from getting prices down to where they'd like to see them to tap into as many buyers as they can.
Are we experiencing some delays and maybe part of the effect is coming from a sort of challenged workforce nationally that is producing these materials, you think?
Yeah, a lot of the sourcing, whether it's light fixtures or appliances that are coming from China or the Far East, or even things that are produced domestically in markets like California that for the longest time were still closed while the rest of us were trying to get back at it. That produced a lot of disruptions and forced a lot of builders, a lot of suppliers and contractors to adjust course and see where they could find some new supply chains that are perhaps a little bit more reliable. And I anticipate that as we go through things, because any of these chains are just a COVID case or two away from having significant disruption.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. Will you stick with me and come back on the other side of the break?
Yep, I'll see you.
Awesome. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more Phil Crone. We're going to talk about permit issues, that this is a chronic problem right now in our area. We'll be right back.
The hardest working and arguably most important system in our homes is our air conditioning and heating system. It heats the air, it cools the air, and it filters the air. That's why it's so critical to have it checked and maintained by the very best professionals available. It's time to contact Total Air and Heat at totalair.com. Get that system pruned and tuned. If you want to have the very best experience, you've got to hire the very best company. Total Air's employees are honest, well-trained, and thoroughly background checked. I never have to worry about sending their technicians out to my clients' homes. Family owned and operated for 3 generations, Total Air and Heat has been a fixture in North Dallas for over 60 years. Total Air is a proud dealer of the Trane air conditioning systems, and you know how hard it is to stop a Trane, so give them a call at 972-881-0020. That's 972-881-0020, or contact them at totalair.com today.
We're always happy that we have in the building industry, we're always happy that we have a surge in new home production and remodeling, of course. It's one of the largest employers in the city, in most cities, actually. And so it's an indicator of the overall health of the economy when people are willing to make long-term commitments and things like that. There are some side effects, and of course, COVID has been a huge challenge for everybody, in particular, the city governments because they're having such problems with keeping people in and social distancing and all the things that we've all been experiencing in our daily lives. And I asked Phil to comment today about, I'm with Phil Crone, the EO of the Dallas Builders Association, and I've asked Phil to comment on some of the challenges that are happening. And he told me he just published an article. It's incredible, Phil, how you and I just think alike. You just published an article on this very subject. Tell us what's going on with, I'm about to go pull a permit. What am I going to face?
Well, I kind of compared it, and again, talking about Dallas, I kind of compared it to, I guess those in my generation may have played the Oregon Trail video game where you try to go through an arduous journey with all sorts of perils seen and unseen to try to get to your destination, and it takes way longer and does not go as smooth as you'd like it to be. Now, I will say, backing up, that there are a lot of cities that have had some similar challenges as we've all had to adjust to the COVID-19 situation. The partnerships that we had with them have allowed things to go rather smoothly there, but Dallas has had some unique challenges because they were pretty much in their infancy with a online permitting system, and now it has a plethora of problems that have resulted in permits taking upwards of a month or more, sometimes as much as 6 weeks, on a process that used to, and this was quite an advantage in Dallas, take a matter of hours for some builders who had gold card status.
Well, and we used to be able, on remodeling, basically at one time, not that long ago, you could walk them through in a day, half a day. But then things increasingly got more complicated. And so it extended a little bit, but then now, are you able to actually go into a building now, or is it all having to be done electronically?
It's, for the very most part, having to be done electronically. And, you know, part of the transition was needed because you'd have a big line pre-COVID out in front of the Oak Cliff Municipal Center to try to get things done in the same day. They needed an online option, but just the way it's been executed with just all the little gotchas, bugs in the system. You were talking about bugs earlier. There are a lot of those in the city of Dallas's permitting system right now that we're trying to work with city staff to squash.
Well, and in all fairness, of course, the smaller towns around us adopted online permitting and online inspections years ago. They've been working on it, working through it, but they don't have the volume. They're not as big as Dallas. And so, and you don't have just, you know, centuries, literally centuries of old paperwork, you know, old systems is what I'm trying to say, that you've got to convert. I mean, that's a tough job.
Yeah, you look at, I mean, you could have, just in terms of single family permits, someone like Salina who's done a good job with this because they are newer, they have had a later start, and Dallas just has a lot more, you know, certainly big commercial projects, a lot of really small trades permits, you know, garage sale, tents, all those type of things. Restaurants trying to adjust to having the restaurant essentially in the parking lot now. There have been a lot of uniquely Dallas challenges that have contributed to some of the problems here that the building inspections office is having. Well,
and not to mention that you have, I'm sure they have staff issues just from people getting ill. I mean, it's just, you know, it's all tough for everybody where you're having to have staff, just like in a restaurant.
People, even people that are in a high risk position needing to work from home. I mean, that's what we're doing in a couple cases here at the Dallas Builders Association, and a lot of your viewers are probably thinking about the same thing.
Well, and they're doing it, and it's interesting because I think it's kind of forcing us into a new way of doing things that needed to be done. It's forcing them into this, you know, stepping up their game with this electronic permitting. Now, are they doing electronic inspections, or is that still all site done?
Inspections are still done on site. Now, of course, the social distancing rules that we've gotten used to still apply there, and they're trying to make sure that the number of people on the site is at an absolute minimum when the inspector comes out there. But to the city's credit, by and large, they've been right on in terms of the timeliness of inspections. It's just getting the permits out, getting things, even the jobs closed. If you can't get a fence permit, for example, those have been a bit of a challenge for a number of builders and contractors.
Yeah, no, it's a challenge on a good day.
Yeah.
When you throw this kind of thing in, it's really, really, really tough. So let's talk real quick. We've got about 3 minutes left. Let's talk about labor and material shortages and some of those challenges. What are you finding? Now we kind of discussed material challenges. How's our labor doing?
Labor, just like we're seeing with the broader market, there's a lot of disruption there, whether on the micro level. I've fielded a number of calls from members who have had some COVID cases pop up in their workforce or in their office, and they are trying to address those and account for those, and with the utmost concern for the safety of workers and everybody on the job site. But then also, it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out with just so many unemployed Americans, unemployed North Texans. Are they going to fill the labor shortage that we have, and I anticipate we'll still continue to see in our industry? Are we going to be able to have that happen? But a catering manager can't move overnight onto a plumbing crew or an HVAC crew. We're going to have to invest in the training to bridge that gap.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know that the local public school system is doing their best. They started. I don't know how that's going now with all of this stuff, but there's a lot of entities locally, particularly locally, that everybody's trying to up their game on trades. And it just seems like every time we get going, we hit another brick wall. But I think that's quite interesting that there's so many people out of work now. We do have a workforce to fill those holes, a lot of them. But of course, you have to start at the ground level. So are you willing to do that and make those sacrifices that most people have to make when they decide to go into the trades? Our materials, I know they're spiking in price. How is accessibility for builders, as far as you can tell, for materials?
Accessibility, like I said before, just there have been, and it kind of goes more vendor by vendor on some supply chain disruptions. I had heard about some in the HVAC industry, and it just depends on what the status is, both health wise and regulatory wise, of just where those materials are produced. Lumber, by and large, just from a global standpoint, is the biggest challenge. Random Lengths of framing lumber hit $627 per 1,000 board feet last week.
That's amazing.
The highest it's been in quite a while.
Yeah.
It's up over 138% from a year ago.
Man, that's crazy. That is crazy. Well, Phil, we really appreciate you coming in and spending the morning with us. You've done an incredible job steering the Builders Association through this crisis. As always, you have embraced the COVID protocols. You tell us about how you sell and provide hand sanitizer to your members.
Sure. It's part of transcending this crisis is empowering our members to have what they need on the job site to try to keep workers safe. And part of that is having a whole bunch of hand sanitizer that we have in our office available to anybody for $20 a gallon. So far, we put about 2,000 gallons out on area job sites, and I think that's provided a lot of solutions.
Man, that's fantastic. Well, we really do appreciate you in the industry. You're an industry leader, not only locally, statewide, but nationally. We appreciate your insight and all your hard work, and your staff is amazing. So if you're not a member, if you're a builder and you're not a member of the Dallas Builders Association, you're a builder in Dallas, join. You need to, because they are here to support you. If you're a homeowner and you're new and you're thinking about needing a builder, if you need a builder or a remodeler, contact the Dallas Builders Association and you can get a referral list of their members. Phil, thank you so much for being with us today. Have a fantastic day, my friend. Hope to see you soon.
My pleasure, Alex. You too. Take care.
Thanks, buddy. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have Daryl Davis, Texas Water Boys. He's the sprinkler man. We'll be right back.
Imagine this, a totally customized, organized, and beautiful master closet. A home office that fits right into a perfect space. A pantry designed specifically for your storage needs. Imagine your home totally organized. It's time to call the design professionals at Closets by Design DFW and turn your dreams into a reality. With a design staff over 30 strong, Closets by Design works directly with you to create your dream space, and they build it locally, helping support the DFW community. Check them out at dallas.closetsbydesign.com or call them at 972-361-0010. Use the promo code RRV to find out about the amazing specials and discounts available. That's dallas.closetsbydesign.com or call them at 972-361-0010, and don't forget that promo code RRV. Closets by Design.
Well, anybody that is watering their yard right now in the beginning of August, that's when we're doing this show, is getting a water bill, and sometimes there's lots of zeros behind the first number. And I had a neighbor that was new to the neighborhood, and they decided, I guess they wanted the greenest lawn in the neighborhood, so they watered and they watered and they watered, and then they called the water department and said, how do I pay this bill out? And so I thought, this would be a good time of year to have my very good friend Daryl Davis with Texas Water Boys come on and talk about sprinkler systems and kind of maybe some conservation tips on water. Good morning, Mr. Davis. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good,
Thank
good.
you for having
I'm
me.
so glad to hear. I'm so glad you could make it this morning.
Thank you.
I bet you guys are kind of busy right now.
Yeah.
This time of year.
Yeah, this is for in the sprinkler industry. This is our busy time of year. Being the summer, especially August when we typically don't get rain. But I think North Texas is receiving a little bit of rain as we speak. But no, it's this is for us. This is a busy time of year.
Well, you concentrate on, now I've had you work for me on houses where we're putting in drainage. So you do drainage
Correct.
as well as yard sprinklers.
Correct.
And we're going to talk about both of those things today. But the first thing I was going to ask you about, first top of my list, is maintenance on sprinkler systems. What kind of maintenance, if you're a homeowner, you just bought a house, there's a sprinkler system in there, what should you expect maintenance-wise?
Well, I would annual maintenance. At least you want to go through especially when you start up your system in the spring. Most people just shut the system down or don't pay attention to their system during the winter months, or they have a rain and freeze sensor, so it's overriding the sprinkler itself. So it's really going from zone to zone, checking each zone for its performance. You're checking for either a broken head or broken pipes, and at that point, you're looking for just an efficient system that is properly watering and staying off the impervious surfaces of concrete, or blowing on the fence, or blowing on the side of the house. Or
So if you're walking in the yard and you hit a squishy spot.
right. Well, that goes back to your other question earlier when you're giving the remedies for standing water.
Yeah.
If you have standing water, then you just call Texas Water Boys. So you shouldn't have any standing water. It's water where you want it, when you want it, right? If you have a squishy spot, there's a sprinkler system is fed off the water meter, and most by code they have a backflow prevention device which keeps the sprinkler water from going back into our drinking water. And so that line services each section valve within the property. So if you have a squishy spot, it's that line that stays under pressure 365 days. We like in northern regions where they'll actually blow out their main line. They'll drain their sprinkler system in the winter.
So you don't have any water in the pipe to freeze.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So, but here it's year round. We leave the water in the pipe, and it can develop a small pinhole leak or a larger leak. And if you see a dark green spot in the lawn or a squishy spot, it could be that main line that services each valve passing water, but it could be a valve that has a diaphragm or a solenoid that's leaking within a valve box.
So the valves are buried in the yards, and it's a little control device that kind of controls a zone. So your yard is divided into zones,
Correct.
typically, right?
Correct. So you go to your control box, in the typically outdoor-indoor control box, and each valve is operated with low voltage out to a solenoid in the field, and it opens up the valve and allows the water from that pressurized main line to pass through that valve into that particular section. So just from the control
So
box.
it's the same thing as a water valve in the shower wall or a sink.
Similar, yeah.
But this opens it up automatically.
Electrically,
So,
correct. That's correct, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, I'm learning. I'm learning today. And so a maintenance, and so we see it all the time, and I'm sure everybody has seen, or they're driving down the street and you see the geyser
Right.
out of someone's yard
Right.
after somebody's run through the yard, or if you have to fix a busted sprinkler head, is that a big deal normally?
Not normally, no. I mean that's when we have the brick and mortar stores for the do-it-yourselfers to purchase. Now, it may not be as a professional contractor. We're using a professional series of products. So most of the products we're installing, it's through a supply house. It's not through a brick and mortar store. So you're not going to get the exact same head, more than likely, and you're not probably going to have the same nozzle, but it'll get you by. And
Until Texas Water Boys
Texas
can
Water
come
Boys,
by.
that's right. And there was a day where when you're driving down the road, especially as we get into the fall and winter months, and you start seeing icing on sidewalks and icing on streets, there was a time in most states that a rain and freeze sensor wasn't mandatory. That you no longer have that option. We'll have customers now that they don't have a functioning rain and freeze sensor, and we'll recommend that rain and freeze sensor, and they'll say we'll pass, and they don't have the option to pass. It's pretty much to a point where I tell my technicians that to share that information with the client, in that they don't have the option. A rain and freeze sensor is required.
Okay, so one of the things I wanted to discuss with you were some water saving devices, and that is, this is a mandated device that is on your sprinkler system that tells it what? How does it operate?
The rain and freeze sensor. It's usually installed in an open space, maybe on the fence or the side of the garage, and it has a wafer in it. There are several types out there of manufacturers, but for the most part, there's a cork type product within the body of the rain and freeze sensor that's mounted externally, and now they're wireless. They're not hardwired in, so it talks to the rain and freeze sensor that's connected to the controller, and it overrides the system. So the system cannot come on until that wafer or that cork dries out and tells it can come on. And those rain and freeze sensors can be set to where a 1/4 inch of rain or 1/2 inch of rain. It's measurable, but in any event, when water hits that rain and freeze sensor, it overrides the sprinkler control box, and it will not let it
And
come
the
on.
objective is
To save water.
to
not run water when we don't need to run water.
and to not have ice on the sidewalks.
Or the streets.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yep.
Well, it used to be kind of fun driving down the road and hitting some frozen.
Yeah, I don't know about that. We did have an incident many years ago where, and I believe it was in the Carrollton area, where there was this constant runoff from a commercial building that, and I believe it was a restaurant, and they had an icy patch, and so the car obviously hit the icy patch, slid off the road, jumped the sidewalk, and I think it actually went into the restaurant that was running their system during freezing weather. So there was a huge fine, and
got fined, had to fix it, and it
totaled
was
the
all
car.
his fault.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
We're laughing. Wasn't our restaurant.
right. Yeah, or our car.
Cities is that all cities are requiring
Yes.
now?
Yes.
So they don't have any other requirements?
No.
Wow.
Well, I mean, other
Do they
than
inspect sprinkler systems now?
yes, so in order to tie into the water supply, the water meter that supplies your home, and to install a backflow prevention device to get water for the sprinkler system, you have to pull a permit, and you have to call for an inspection. So once that device is installed and you've paid for your permit, you've called your inspector, he comes out, and you also have to do a test, perform a test on the backflow prevention device, proving that it's when you pressure it up, that the water does not, from the sprinkler system, does not go back into our drinking water. So there's a test that has to be performed, and it has to be submitted to the city, called for inspection, and then they will issue a green tag saying that you can proceed.
So anytime you tie into anything that has to do with the city, whether it's a sidewalk, a street, or of course anything that has to do with sewer, water, has to be inspected.
That's correct.
So so this leads me to the question about the people doing these things, because I know people that will just have their yard guy do it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're governed by the TCEQ, and they just do not have the manpower to enforce what is required. And you are supposed to have licensed technicians, licensed irrigators by the state of Texas, and they're the only ones that are allowed to make any repairs, modifications, install an irrigation system in the state of Texas without being licensed. So yes, to answer your question, that's what we're up against. Is it's very convenient to have the gentleman, young lady that's working on your lawn repair a sprinkler system, but by code in the state of Texas, it's supposed to be a licensed irrigation contractor.
Now, if you're just repairing a busted sprinkler head or something minor, that's not a big deal. I mean, that's almost a handyman project for most people.
That's right. So the way it is written, the line that comes from that backflow prevention device, what we're calling the main line that feeds water to those suction valves, opening up that main line is what the state is asking us as homeowners to use a licensed contractor, because that is where back siphonage, the sprinkler water, can go back into the drinking water if it's not properly repaired.
So just repairing general little things could be kind of anybody.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
But what is your advice to a homeowner that's thinking, I'll just have so-and-so put this thing in, they're half Daryl's price. They're not really a sprinkler person, but they can dig a ditch.
Right.
What is your advice to a homeowner considering that? What can they run into? And I'm not talking about tying into the city, because obviously that's going to have to be a licensed plumber.
Right.
But what sort of problems can you run into, such as maybe your zones aren't correctly sized? Maybe it's the wrong kind of sprinkler head.
Yeah, I think it would be efficiency. I think, I think it's a warranty issue, knowing that what the qualifications are for the person that is making the repairs, and his willingness to stand behind those repairs, and the ability to make that phone call when you find out the repairs weren't made properly. So it's the efficiency of the system from a professional contractor. It's making sure that I've seen do-it-yourselfers or the lawn person make the repairs, and then we end up having to come out
And really do a big job.
right.
Yeah.
But the same thing, even at my own house. I mean, if my wife asks me to make a repair, usually she's better off calling a professional contractor because it's not going to get. I just know that, right? So
I finally convinced my wife
yeah.
of that after about 20 years.
Yeah.
I said, you might as well just call
Right,
the contractor.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
why you're asking
yeah,
me to
right,
do it, man.
yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
Plus, I'll get injured.
That's right. And then I won't be able to work. Can't buy your new car.
Right.
I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you
Yeah.
spending time with us this morning. It's
Thank you for
always a
having me.
pleasure, and we're going to do this again. I'll probably next time we'll have Daryl out here is when we're talking about drainage systems when it's flooding.
Yep.
Daryl does a lot of that, and I wanted to talk to him about that today, but I think we just ran out of time. And so I really appreciate you being here as always. Texas Water Boys is super, super fine company in Dallas, Texas. I've worked with them for many years. I highly recommend them. Thank you, Daryl Davis. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Next week, we're going to have Poonam back, and we're going to continue her series of pandemic projects. I gave her the day off. She needed a vacation. I'm kidding. She had it. She was going to take it anyway. And We're looking forward to having a fantastic week, the rest of this week. I hope you do. And I want to thank Phil Crone, Daryl Davis, and thank you, Ziggy Becker, our engineer. And thank you, On Air Media, and of course, our sponsors. Welcome to the family, Closets by Design. We're so happy to have you here. We're going to do some great projects together. Until next week, this is Alex Guthrie signing off. Have a fantastic week.
The views and opinions of this program are for educational and entertainment purposes only and are not intended to replace the recommendations of a hired professional. You can catch Remodel Revolution anytime. Follow the show on the website, remodelrevolutionradio.com, or on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest, using the handle @Remodel Revolution Radio. You can always listen to the show on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and TuneIn, and watch the show anytime on YouTube.